Are you looking for a fun little car to get you around after you lose your job at the auto plant? Try the Kia Pogi, the Korean tariff-free import with its mocking horn. Made of sturdy, shredded VCRs, the Pogi is great on gas to get you to and from the unemployment office. Headlights standard on every model. An air freshener with Stephen Harper's picture, so you never forget whose free trade deal cost you your job. The Kia Pogi, the fun little car with the mocking horn. Runs on the tears of laid-off auto workers, so you'll never run out of gas.
Hi there, I'm Jared Howard.
And I'm Robert Nisbet.
You're tuned into Video Radio, where we go through massive quantities of mainstream media to make sure you get the few golden nuggets of facts.
That's right.
And Rick Mercer is a golden nugget.
Oh, he is, especially when he talks about new products like the Kia Pogi.
Yes, because we have so much more money for them than we do for our own seniors, veterans, children, natives, absolutely anybody.
But our Mr. Harper has been very busy lately. He was recently in South Korea, cementing a trade deal with the Republic of South Korea.
And if you really want the details, well, here, check it out.
After a decade of talks with South Korea, negotiations are done. There is a free trade deal.
With this deal today, we have opened the door to opportunities that will boost Canadian prosperity now and for decades to come.
The deal will see nearly all tariffs on goods across most industries in each country eliminated over the next 15 years, though the bulk will disappear when the deal is signed. Standing to gain, everything from PEI potatoes to Niagara ice wine, Alberta beef, and BC salmon, all of which will have increased access to South Korea, the world's 15th largest economy. But much of the auto sector feels it stands to lose. The deal means a 6% tariff on Korean-made cars will be eliminated over 2 years. In a statement, Ford Canada says it can't support the deal, saying in part, "We believe that South Korea will remain one of the most closed automotive markets in the world under the deal."
As a result of our announcement today,
To that, the Prime Minister swung back and swung hard, pointing to Ford's support of the 2012 free trade deal between the U.S. and Korea. It was less adversarial with other stakeholders, many of them brought to South Korea by the government for the announcement.
This is the first free trade agreement in Asia. We'd like this to be the first, not the last.
Now, there are some exceptions to the removal of tariffs in Canada. That includes supply-managed agricultural goods like dairy, poultry, and eggs. And it's important to remember this deal isn't totally done. It still has to go through Parliament. However, the government remains optimistic it could be implemented by early 2015.
So we're recording in downtown Kelowna right now. It's like the 5th day of spring and it's so cold. We're complaining because it's like 2 degrees outside.
Yeah, it could be worse.
We used to get snow up to this point. Climate change is a real problem, and of course the Conservatives are living in denial about that one. Free trade, of course, creates more consumerism, which creates more climate problems. Put 2 and 2 together. I mean, it's something the Conservatives can't seem to do.
And of course, our provincial government is very excited about this new trade deal because it will be more exports of more raw British Columbia products and more people out of work.
So remember that underneath these conservative-minded Liberals, Christy Clark and her provincial crew, we've had 42 lumber mills close, but we've upped the number of logs that we're shipping out. We could have jobs where we're producing or upgrading our resources. Value added is the way that you look at it, and we're not doing these things.
Yes, but of course our BC Liberal government has their lips firmly planted on Mr. Harper's gluteus maximus.
And there's another group that we're going to be calling under fire here in City Hall, which is directly behind us.
However, there has been some discussion over the new medical marijuana program that Health Canada is promoting.
They came up with a few unintended consequences to their April 1st nullification of people's ability to grow their own medicine.
Here's a couple of quick clips on that subject.
When they catch someone smoking a joint, police officers have 2 choices: charge the pot smoker with a criminal offense or let them off with a warning. Now, Canada's Justice Minister says he's looking at a 3rd option.
We would look at options that would give police the ability, much like the treatment of open liquor, that would allow the police to ticket those type of offenses.
McKay stresses he's not talking about decriminalization or legalization. Instead, he wants to find another way to deal with people caught with small amounts of marijuana. As a former prosecutor, McKay says it often didn't make sense to use the hammer of a criminal charge.
There were certainly charges laid where small amounts of marijuana were involved, which I thought could have been expedited by way of a fine option.
McKay is following the lead of Canada's police chiefs. When they met last August, they passed a resolution asking for the power to write tickets for marijuana possession, arguing it's often not in the public interest to lay a criminal charge.
Some kind of a ticketing regime would be appropriate, provided that the police continued to hold the discretion to take whatever enforcement action they thought was appropriate in all of the circumstances.
The opposition is happy to see the Conservatives contemplating this small concession in the war on drugs.
The reality is catching up with them, because it's not Joe Blow telling that to Peter McKay or the government. It's the Association of Chief of Police.
McKay won't say when these changes might be made or what constitutes a small amount of marijuana. But if this happens, it will be welcomed by both police officers and marijuana smokers.
A federal judge has approved an injunction allowing current licensed medical marijuana users to continue growing their own pot past April 1st. That's when new regulations kick in that would have forced them to destroy their plants and buy marijuana from new, commercially licensed producers. The move affects almost 40,000 Canadians who use marijuana to reduce pain or treat a variety of conditions. Many argued it was cheaper to grow their own specialized strains than be forced to buy more expensive, regulated marijuana. A lawyer for 4 patients successfully argued the new rules would create hardship, thus violating their charter rights.
Using a specific strain.
New companies like Mercers will now have to compete with current growers and rely on new patients or those willing to make the switch.
The market range for patients that require this medicine sits anywhere from between 400,000 people to upwards of almost 2 million. So it's a big enough market to find a place for everybody in it.
Health Canada is studying the decision but insists the new rules will cut down on growers who sell surplus marijuana illegally, eliminate fire hazards from grow-ops, and reduce crime. Just this week, one person was injured after shots were fired in Langley at a licensed grow-op. The injunction is temporary until a full trial on the issue later this year.
If there's any merit to any of the government claims about mold and fire and all this stuff, that all of those things are remedial and can be dealt with by less intrusive ways than taking away the right of personal production.
So for now, rather than drink to their health, medical marijuana patients are smoking to it and gathering support to fight the next legal battle. Kirk Williams, CBC News, Vancouver.
Okay, so there were some unintended consequences.
Yes, apparently Health Canada is not set up to properly monitor or there won't be enough product produced for the medical marijuana patients.
And of course, they would have known this information if they gathered any statistics or scientific studies, which of course the Conservatives are allergic to.
However, there was an alert judge who was aware of this problem and decided that patients should be allowed to grow their own, at least past the April 1st deadline.
I'm thinking that was a good idea. Of course, people did not hear about the entire action until they put it through, something like the illegal cop shop that they're starting to put up here in Kelowna. However, we're going to be talking about that on Sunday as we're recording downtown, and the way they're mismanaging local funds. This is just a way they're mismanaging national funds at the Conservative level.
But they're very happy to bend over backwards to appease the resource extractors.
And of course, the very small group of people who benefit from pipeline production.
Apparently, they have decided to allow Line 9 to start shipping oil east to Quebec.
And of course, if you watch lamestream media, you probably didn't see this clip.
Well, we have yet to hear a final decision from the White House on whether it will move forward with building the Keystone XL pipeline. But it seems in the meantime, Canadian regulators have taken the initiative to approve their own very similar pipeline. It's called the Line 9 pipeline, and it would for the first time connect Alberta's tar sands to Montreal. The proposal, which was approved by Canada's National Energy Board, allows for the reversal and expansion of the line. The reversal means that the pipeline can now carry crude oil east in addition to west. Keep in mind, this is the same oil that would be transported by the Keystone XL pipeline if approved. The oil consists of a thick, hard-to-extract mixture that scientists have called, quote, the dirtiest type of liquid fuel. But while environmentalists say this kind of oil would further tarnish communities, the State Department has denied it, releasing a report that details no significant harm.
I think we should start with that note. We didn't even see anything in North American media about this.
There may have been a small article in the paper, buried in the business section or something.
But the fact that Occupy, Adbusters, any of the Greenpeace groups are not, screaming about this is rather surprising. So we would like to thank you for 66,000 views, 66,666 views sometime last Sunday right here at YouTube.
I wonder what that would mean to the numerologists up there.
Yes, I know. I kind of wanted to get a screenshot of that actual number going up, but we launched to 66,850 in like hours, so, whatever. It happens. Of course, we're going to keep going and we're going to keep doing what we do. We want you to start your own radio station, get your own newspaper together.
Even just put some clips together and send them to us.
Okay, get involved and start talking about it. Never stop talking about the noble lie or the fact that we can do way better. Remember, it's only banks and governments that aren't interested in easy, cheap, affordable, and easy to implement solutions that would dig us out of the world's problems.
Because ignorance is bliss, but knowledge gives you power.
Thanks for tuning in. I am Darren Howard.
And I am Robert Nisbet.
We'll be back after this lack of messages.
For the first time in its history, the Supreme Court has declared the appointment of one of its justices void. Last fall, Marc Nadon was handpicked by Prime Minister Stephen Harper for one of Quebec's 3 spots on the bench.
It has been a very fulfilling career, and it has met all of my expectations.
But his appointment was immediately challenged. The Supreme Court Act says appointees to those seats have to be from a Quebec court or be a current member of the Quebec Bar. Nadon is neither.
To get around that, the Tories introduced a clause to their omnibus budget bill. It would allow someone like Nadon to be appointed to the Supreme Court as long as they had at one time been a member of the Quebec Bar. This decision, in effect, strikes down then not only Nadon's appointment, but the clause of the bill as well.
This constitutional expert calls the decision staggering.
It's a very dramatic decision for the Supreme Court to essentially thwart the Prime Minister's choice and to hold that Marc Nadon was not eligible from the outset.
Rocco Galati, the lawyer who challenged Nadon's appointment, agrees.
I am aghast to the extent that this government cynically and subversively tries to undermine the rule of law at every turn.
The Prime Minister's office replied with a statement. A spokesperson noted they had consulted a former Supreme Court justice and said in part, "We are genuinely surprised by today's decision. We will review the details of the decision and our options going forward." They might have even more than that to review. The decision also says any changes to the court's composition must be made with the unanimous consent of all provinces and Parliament. The question now, whether that affects the issue of Senate reform currently before the court.
Now, Canada's support for Ukraine has included economic sanctions and tough language against Russia. Language that got even tougher today.
President Putin has provided a rationale for those elsewhere who needed little more encouragement than that already furnished by pride or grievance, to arm themselves to the teeth.
Now, 20 years ago, Ukraine gave up its nuclear weapons in exchange for a guarantee of its territorial integrity. Ukraine's leader says by annexing Crimea, not only did Russia breach international law, but it paved the way for others to do the same. Now, Harper's meeting with Artsini Yatsenyuk comes just days before the Canadian Prime Minister meets with the other leaders of the G7, where they'll discuss whether or not to kick Russia out and shrink the G8 to just 7 countries.
I don't think it takes much imagination for you to figure out what my view on that is, but I will certainly listen to what our partners in the G7 have to say.
Now, Harper will take his Ukrainian counterparts' concerns to that emergency meeting of the G7 on Monday in The Hague. And it's clear that some world leaders are ready to take the next step against Russia.